Hi everyone, today I wanted to take an opportunity to walk you through what my current EDC is. Obviously with winter coming into full swing here, we're going to be wearing more layers so that can afford us to wear or carry more items. So I figured I'd show you what I'm currently carrying. I've been carrying this for a while now, and as I go through each individual part, I'll also show you some alternative options out there if you like the general idea but you're looking for something a little bit different as far as specifics go. So after I show you each individual part, I'm going to show you how they all come together on my person, and then we'll go from there. Alright, so let's go ahead and start with what you're probably the most interested in. This is going to be my gun and my backup mag. So typically if I'm only going to be carrying one gun, I'm going to carry a backup mag. Sometimes I'll carry two guns, in which case I may or may not be carrying a backup mag, but currently right now I've been carrying this. This is a Glock 19 Gen 4 with an Inforce APL weapon light. I really like having the ability to have a light mounted to my gun. It just makes things a lot easier. I know there are ways that you can carry a flashlight and use a flashlight with a gun, but to me it simplifies things if you just have one included. I really like the APL. There are other good weapon lights out there, but as far as inside the waistband carry, with how slim the APL is in relation to the gun as a whole, it makes it extremely comfortable to carry. And as far as what guns I've EDC'd, this is by far the most comfortable. I've also swapped out the sights, so I have Amerigalo I.Dot Pros that kind of allows me to pick up my sights faster, and also it allows me to see a little bit better in low light. And the only other modifications I've made is I have a OC Custom trigger in there, as well as a Vickers with Tango Down slide stop. And then as far as my backup mag, oh by the way, this is a C² holster. As far as how to get in touch with this guy, I don't know if he has a website or not, but I'll put a link to his Facebook page in case you're interested in looking into one of these holsters. I've become a really big fan of this holster. I actually picked it up secondhand from someone, and I'm a really big fan, pretty much sold on it. As far as my backup mag, I just carry a standard Glock 19 backup mag. And as far as the ammo that I carry, I use the Tourniquet Critical Duty, not the Plus P stuff, just the standard Critical Duty in 9mm. It functions well, it shoots well, but I know it's going to do the job. And then as far as the mag pouch that I use for my backup mag, this is a NSR Tactical EDC mag, I think is the product code for it, or product title. And then this one's in the Cryptek Typhoon, which, you know, I think looks cool. Granted, inside the waistband no one's going to see it, but you know, at least I know it's there, and that makes me feel a little bit better. As for some other options as far as holsters go, if you don't want to carry a weapon light, another holster that I really like, again from NSR Tactical, is their C1, which I'll put a link to my review of that video up here. Really like that holster. It's very comfortable, very slim, and yeah, and it works well if you don't want to carry a weapon light. So let's go ahead and move on to the other defensive weapons that I carry on me. Okay, so next up we're going to go ahead and talk about knives. The one that I've been carrying the most recently is the Spyderco Manix 2 Lightweight. This thing is a phenomenal knife. It's not the cheapest in the world, but for the price it's well worth the money. It's made here in the USA, so if you like USA made knives, that's always a good thing. And it has a kind of a weirder blade steel. It's the CTS BD1. In my experience, it holds up really well, holds an edge very well, also takes an edge really well. I just recently sharpened this thing back up, and it's like scary sharp. One thing I like about this is just how slim it is, so when it's in your pocket, it doesn't feel like it takes up too much space. It's very easy to get into your pocket. I have other knives out there that are a little bit wider, and it's kind of a pain to get in and out of my pocket with a knife clip to it. So this, you know, fixes that. And for the weight, it's still got a really big meaty blade, opens up very nicely, you know, opens really quick, and it's just a really nice looking knife. If I'm not going to carry the Manix 2, typically my other go-to is the R.A.T. Model 1. This is going to be a much more budget-friendly knife. These things are great. Every single time I've given a knife to someone as a gift, it's been a R.A.T. Model 1. So hopefully that should tell you how highly I think of it. I've also had the opportunity to meet a couple knife makers, one of which was Ethan Becker, and it was a really good feeling when I pulled this out of my pocket to show him what I was carrying, and he had nothing but good things to say about the R.A.T. Model 1. So coming from a knife maker like that, it feels really good. The edge retention on this is going to be less than the Manix 2. This is the AUS 8 blade steel, but it sharpens up really easy, and holds an edge as well as I need it to. I'm not always using my knives to cut stuff, so it's nice to have that there. And then occasionally I'll carry, again, this is going to be NSR Tactical. If you're noticing a trend here, don't be surprised. And it's the KaBar TDI knife in their EDC little holster here, and it fits perfectly onto your belt line. For me personally, I only carry it if I'm going to be wearing an outer jacket, like if I'm going to go hike or go for a walk or something like that with my girlfriend. And it just sits really nicely against my belt, doesn't stick into me at all. But with the end of it, unless you find a nice flat part of your body to stick it to, this little grip is going to be sticking out, so that's why I only carry it with a jacket. So there are other knives that I've carried in the past, other knives that I really like, one of which is one that I really miss, which is the Spyderco Tenacious. I carried that all the time when I was living in North Carolina still. When I moved back here to Oregon, it got lost in the transition somewhere, and I haven't bought a new one yet. So typically my go-tos are going to be one of these two, but there are other knives that I will occasionally carry if I'm feeling a little froggy. Alright, so up next, let's go ahead and talk about my multi-tool that I carry with me. This is the Leatherman Juice S2. I have a video review of this one, which I'll go ahead and put a link to up there. This is by far my favorite EDC multi-tool. I know there are other ones that are bigger, have more tools and all that, but for me, just carrying it in my pocket every day, this thing is perfect. I've used this thing constantly. Unfortunately, they don't make this version of it anymore. They have an updated version that's very similar, but this thing has just come in handy so many times. Also, as far as multi-tools go, this thing has one of the best pairs of scissors that I've ever come across. And I've definitely used the crap out of them to the point where, like, I think my brother was using it to open something and it kind of broke the spring tension on it, so normally it'll reset back out, but it's still very functional as scissors. And it has just a bunch of tools that I find myself having to use on a regular basis. It's got a few different size screws, but again, if you want more details on this, go ahead and just reference that video that I did of this. But again, this is a great knife, or excuse me, great multi-tool, and I would highly encourage that you have a multi-tool on you, whether that be a Leatherman, whether that be a Gerber, whether that be one of those Victorinox little multi-tools. These come in really, really handy, and I really can't overstate how crucial this can be to your EDC, and just really fill in a niche that not really anything else can fit out there. So let's go ahead and move on to my flashlight. I've used a couple different flashlights in my EDC before. This one specifically is the Tourniquet TN12. I believe this is the 2014 edition for what that's worth. I really like this flashlight. Works really well. To me, it's a good size where it fits in my hand. If I have to, I can use it similar to like an expandable baton in the close position, using this for strikes. It has a bunch of different light settings between the really low lumen all the way up to, I believe, over 1,000 lumens on a fresh battery. Also has a strobe feature, which is kind of nice, and can be really disorientating for people. But it's a really good flashlight, really resilient. It rains here in Oregon a lot, and I haven't had any issues with water getting into it, so it's held up well. I don't know how well you can tell, but it's definitely showing wear from being carried every day, but I don't mind things looking worn, and it definitely could look a lot worse. I've had flashlights that look a lot worse a lot quicker. So again, this is Tourniquet. If you don't like a flashlight this size, Tourniquet does make much smaller size flashlights, so they make something pretty much for everyone, and they come in at a really reasonable price, in my opinion. You can check these out on Amazon, and with this and pretty much everything else, I'll have a link to it in the description below. So if you want to check it out for yourself, you can by all means follow those links and see if this will fit into your everyday carry. One other thing I like to carry is a lighter. Now, I don't smoke, however, it's good to have something to be able to start a fire with if I have to. I just use a mini Bic, and then what I did is I took Gorilla Tape and just wrapped it around the handle of the mini Bic. It comes in really handy, as you can tell. I've used a little bit more off this side than this side, but duct tape is one of those things where it comes in handy all the time. You know, I've heard it said that if duct tape isn't the answer, you're asking the wrong question. So having a little bit of duct tape with you everywhere you go is handy, especially in such a small package like this, where it doesn't add a lot of bulk to the size of the mini bic, and you know, it's very functional, very useful, and I really like having it. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is starting to dig into the medical supplies that I carry with me. This is a R.A.T.S tourniquet, Rapid Application Tourniquet System, I believe is what that stands for. These things are amazing. As far as tourniquets go, you know, it's very small, very compact. You can make it into a smaller package than I have. I just kind of already have it preset. They're very easy to use. They're very effective, and they're really reasonably priced. I've got a few of these in different places. I carry one in my backpack. I carry one on me, and you know, again, I've given these out as gifts to people. In my opinion, if you are, so it comes down to this. If you get into a fist fight, you can't expect not to get punched. If you get into a knife fight, you can't expect not to get cut. If you get into a gunfight, you can't expect to not get shot. So being able to not only put holes in people, but to fix holes in either myself or someone else comes in really handy, and I think is a really important thing and just a responsible thing. Especially if you look at recent world events, you know that things are getting kind of squirrely out there. So being able to administer combat trauma style first aid is really important in saving people's lives. I know there are videos out there of people, you know, getting shot in the femoral artery, and those of you who aren't familiar, the femoral artery is the one that's basically on the inside of your thighs, and if that gets nicked, you got maybe 30 seconds before you're unconscious, if not dead. So having the ability to stop at least somewhat that bleeding is really important. Now, I thought I was a big shot carrying around a tourniquet, thinking that I was cool and carrying a lot of medical supplies, but again, with recent events around the world, I've realized that a tourniquet isn't enough. So what I did is I started looking around into what other options there are as far as EDC medical stuff, and that's what I'm going to take you on to now. So for those of you who are subscribed to TheHossUSMC on YouTube, you know, he just recently made a video about this stuff, and he's the guy that I talked to as far as putting something like this together. This is basically what I carry in one of my cargo pockets, and this carries a lot more kind of combat trauma style stuff. So I got two pairs of medical gloves, nitrile gloves. I got a few alcohol prep pads. I have a Israeli bandage. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with Israeli bandages, these are basically a compression bandage. These are really useful for not only extremity wounds, but also abdominal wounds. See, that's one thing where tourniquets don't really have a good application, and that's abdominal wounds or head wounds. Obviously, you don't want to tourniquet someone's neck, and you can't really tourniquet a torso. So having the ability to have a pressure bandage to stop the bleeding, or at least provide direct pressure onto a spot, is really important. So I like having some sort of compression bandage, whether that be an H bandage or an Israeli bandage. For me, this just takes up a lot smaller space, so it fits into this a little bit better. Next thing I have is another tourniquet. This is a TK4 tourniquet. Now, I left this one in the wrapper in case I have to deal with something like a sucking chest wound. This gives me the ability to do that, as well as this next item. Oh, and again, you know, these are great. They're not necessarily the most effective tourniquets, but they work, and a little bit of blood stoppage is better than no blood stoppage. And then the last thing I have in here is basically sterile dressing. It's like gauze, compressed gauze. This is like 4 yards of gauze, so if you need a pack a wound, this is going to work well for that. There are videos out there where you can watch, you know, people who are training on pigs, since pigs are a good analog for people, where they'll shoot a pig and then they'll literally fill that empty cavity that was created by the bullet with this stuff, and it's going to help start clotting blood inside. You can also get like quick clot or Celox gauze, which will be even more effective at clotting the blood. And that's the one thing that I don't have in here that I need to add, and that's some sort of hemostatic agent, like again quick clot or Celox, something like that. And that's the one thing that I still need to add to this kit before I feel like I can really start feeling good about it. But again, this is a really good start. This will get me most of the way there, and I know even if it's not in relation to gunshot wounds, you know, car accidents, anything else like that happen on a fairly regular basis, having the ability to start administering first aid in those first couple crucial minutes is extremely important. So that's basically what I have as far as medical supplies. So pretty much the only things I have left to talk about are my keys. You know, nothing fancy on here, just, you know, keys. I got a bottle opener. For those of you in the North Carolina area, this is a free plug. I'm not getting paid to say this. If you haven't been to Mother Earth Brewing, you are doing yourself a disservice. Go check them out. It's so good and just such a friendly atmosphere. Check them out. All right, shameless plug over. All right, so then I just have a wallet. This is a cheap wallet. I think it's a Fossil wallet. I like keeping it as slim as I possibly can. I don't want to be George Costanzaing it out there with a giant wallet. So this kind of forces me to be minimalistic, and I can still fit a fair amount of stuff in there. So I like having a smaller wallet. And then I just have like a little credentials wallet where I have all my certifications, all my licenses, and all the important stuff that I need, as well as some business cards. In here, it's nice, you know, if I'm working and someone wants to check my my security ID or anything else like that, having it ready to present in a professional manner, or like my NRA certificates, or excuse me, NRA certifications, or my Red Cross stuff, anything like that. It's nice to have it all in one area where I can just say, here you go, here's my license, you know, and be good to go. All right, and then last but certainly not least, I think one of the most overlooked things as far as EDC goes is the belt. This specifically is a original SOE EDC belt. It's 1.5 inches thick, but the thing about this belt is you can literally hold it on one end and it won't flop around. This thing is very rigid. I mean, I can try as hard as I want, and I can't compress this thing down and fold it in half. The nice thing about this is it's going to hold everything on your belt, especially if you're carrying a lot of stuff. You need a very sturdy belt. Also, if I'm doing single-handed weapon manipulation, I can very easily rack my sights off here to, you know, on my handgun to fix malfunctions, which I've done plenty of times just in training. These things are very durable. It's got a really cool Cobra buckle here, so, you know, you squeeze in and it comes apart and it locks in like that. But these things are a little bit more spendy as far as belts go. I'm not exactly the biggest belt connoisseur out there, but trust me, it's worth every penny. They make a couple different styles. If you want a flatter front, they have one with a G-hook instead of a Cobra buckle, but original SOE just makes really good stuff. And the belts typically ship faster just because they're constantly making them. So the most I've ever had to wait for one of these is about a week. So if you're looking into a good hardcore belt, original SOE is definitely the one I would look at. If you want something a little bit more formal looking, I know Galco makes some, and I know there's some other options coming out right now, but this is what I carry. Alright, so at this point I'm going to go ahead and put all of this back in my pants and show you exactly where everything goes and how it all fits together. Alright, so let me start this process by saying the type of pants that I typically wear this season are going to be the Vertex Tactical pants. I like these pants a lot. In my opinion, they're better than the 511 pants. They just fit more comfortably, and the pocket designs are a little bit better in my opinion. But this is going to be the base of it. Obviously I have the original SOE belt in there. As far as my front right pocket, I'm going to typically carry my wallet in there, as well as my knife. Just clipped to my pocket just like that, and really that's it as far as that pocket goes. On the other side, I'll typically throw my keys in there, as well as my cell phone. Obviously got my Magpul case because I'm a Magpul fanboy. Throw that in there, and that's pretty much it for that pocket. Where things start to get a little bit crazy are my cargo pockets. So on my right side, in my cargo pocket over here, let me see if I can get this into frame a little bit better. In this cargo pocket, I'll typically carry my multi-tool, my lighter. Then I'll carry my credentials wallet down here as well. And then what I'll do is there's a little, like a channel pocket on the inside, and I'll just feed the R.A.T.S tourniquet into that little channel pocket so that it stays nice and organized and kind of separate from everything else, so I can pull it out in a hurry if I have to. Which is hard to do while looking into a camera, so I'll just leave that out for now. Going on to the other side, this is where I typically have my flashlight, which again I'll typically put into that channel pocket just to keep it separate, keep it easy to access. And then what I'm going to do is throw my little, I guess, mini EDC IFAK in this pocket as well. Now, when I have this in here, you can definitely tell I have something in that pocket, but it's not so obnoxious that it makes it annoying to walk or anything crazy like that. Then as far as what I wear on my belt line, typically I'm going to have my gun in the appendix position right up here, just mounted like that on one side of my belt. I'll have my backup mag on the other side of my belt, just like that. And then I just really like the appendix carry. It works for me really well. And then if I do carry my KaBar TDI knife, I'll usually wear it just behind this belt loop. That way when I draw it out, I don't have to worry about this sliding around. But again, typically that makes it stick out pretty far. So unless I'm wearing a jacket, it's pretty obvious that I got something on my belt like that. So anyway, that's basically what my EDC is this season. What I'll go ahead and do is I'll do basically individual reviews of each of those items and annotate them above where I talk about each of those products. So if you're interested in a little bit more details about any of them, go ahead and reference those. I'll also link them in the description below. If you have any recommendations or suggestions or questions about any of the things that I carry, go ahead and put those in the comment section below. I'd love to hear what you guys are carrying. Or and one thing I want to mention too is I totally understand that not everyone can carry all this stuff. It's a little bit unrealistic, but me as a firearms instructor and a security instructor, I can get away with carrying or wearing tactical pants everywhere I go, and having it at work. I don't have to worry about concealing at work. So I know I'm kind of in a little bit of a luxury there, but I would hope that some of these things can give you some ideas as far as what you can carry. There are alternatives out there and smaller versions of pretty much everything that I have, so that might help you out a little bit. But again, if you have any questions or recommendations, please let me know. I'm by no means the expert when it comes to all things EDC, so I'd love to hear what you guys carry that I don't. But really, I hope you got something out of this, and I appreciate you watching. Now I know at this point you're probably asking yourself, is he wearing pants? Well, unfortunately, I'll just leave that to your imagination.